70 years, what a journey. It feels surreal to be here, standing on the edge of decades that seem to pass like the turning of pages in a favorite book. In my younger days, life felt endless, full of possibilities and untapped dreams. There was always more to do, more to see, more people to meet. I embraced it all with open arms, thriving on the energy of connection and the rhythm of busy days. But as the years unfolded, something shifted. A subtle change that crept in unnoticed at first. Now I find myself drawn to stillness, to reflection. This isn't about sadness or regret, it's about a deep appreciation for the quiet moments. Somewhere along the way I realized that stepping back from the noise brings clarity, and choosing solitude is an act of self-care. Let me share the lessons this chapter has revealed. 1. The evolution of relationships, learning to let go and hold on. When I was younger, relationships were the core of my world. I thrived on the company of friends, family, and colleagues. My calendar was full of birthdays, dinners, and gatherings, and my phone never stopped buzzing with calls and plans. Being surrounded by people felt like the very definition of a full life. But as the years went by, something began to shift. People moved away, careers changed, and life's responsibilities grew heavier. Some relationships faded quietly, like a song you loved but haven't heard in years. Others ended abruptly, leaving a space I wasn't sure how to fill. At 70, I've learned that relationships evolve, just as we do. And that's okay. Not every connection is meant to last forever. The people who remain, the ones who truly matter, are those who see you, understand you, and meet you where you are, even as you both change. Now I value simplicity over obligation. I no longer chase after friendships that drain me or pour energy into connections that feel one-sided. Instead, I cherish those rare, golden relationships that bring joy and warmth to my life. These are the ones that feel easy, not because they lack depth, but because they are built on mutual respect and understanding. And while there's a pang of nostalgia for the friendships I've let go, I've come to see them as gifts for their time. They were stepping stones, each one shaping the person I've become. At this stage of life, my relationships are fewer, but richer. I've learned to treasure the present and let go of the rest, finding peace in knowing that what remains is exactly what I need. 2. From loneliness to peace, redefining the meaning of solitude. For much of my life, I equated being alone with being lonely. In my younger years, silence felt unbearable, as if the absence of others somehow diminished my worth. I sought the company of friends, colleagues, or even strangers to fill the gaps, believing that connection was the only path to fulfillment. But now, at 70, I've discovered the beauty of solitude. It is not an emptiness to be feared, but a fullness to be embraced. There's a profound difference between being alone and being lonely. Loneliness is a longing for something that feels out of reach, while solitude is a contentment in simply being. In the quiet of my own company, I've found joy in life's simplest pleasures. A walk at sunrise when the world is still waking, the sound of leaves rustling outside my window on a breezy afternoon. The comfort of an old book, its pages worn and familiar. These moments aren't grand, but they carry a depth that no crowded room ever could. Solitude has also given me space to reflect. Memories of laughter, love, and even loss swirl gently in my mind, not as regrets, but as reminders of a life well lived. This stillness has taught me to let go of guilt for choosing myself over others and to savor the peace that comes with quiet. This doesn't mean I've withdrawn completely. I cherish the moments spent with those who matter most, but those connections feel more meaningful now because they are intentional, not obligatory. In solitude, I've learned that happiness isn't about how many people surround you. It's about finding harmony within yourself. And for the first time, I truly feel at peace. 3. Adapting to a changing world, finding meaning in simplicity. At 70, I sometimes look around and feel like the world I knew has been replaced by something unrecognizable. It's not just the advancements in technology or the pace of life. It's the way we connect, or perhaps fail to connect. I grew up in a time when neighbors knew each other by name, when stopping by unannounced for a cup of coffee wasn't considered an intrusion but a gesture of warmth. Family dinners were sacred, a time to share stories, laughter, and sometimes tears. There was an ease to relationships, a sense of community that required no effort to sustain. Today, it feels different. Conversations are rushed, punctuated by the constant hum of notifications. Visits have been replaced by texts, and shared meals seem like relics of the past. Even within families, distance, both physical and emotional, seems to stretch the ties that once bound us. While I appreciate the conveniences of modern life, video calls to see my grandchildren, the ability to reconnect with old friends online, I can't help but feel a loss. There's something irreplaceable about sitting across from someone, hearing their voice, and feeling their presence. Technology has made communication easier, but in many ways it's made connection harder. The world today feels noisier, yet lonelier. People seem to chase accomplishments or appearances, often missing the joy in the moment. I long for the simplicity of the past, not out of resistance to change, but because I miss the depth of those connections. Still, I remind myself that nostalgia can be deceptive. Life has always had its challenges. So now, I focus on creating small pockets of warmth and meaning in this faster, busier world. A quiet rebellion against its unrelenting pace. 4. The gift of time. How aging redefines its meaning. At 70, time has taken on a weight I never understood in my younger years. Back then, it seemed infinite, an endless river flowing toward an unknowable horizon. Hours were spent without much thought, idle conversations, unfulfilling commitments, and countless distractions. There was always tomorrow, or so I thought. Now, time feels different. It's not just a measurement of hours or days. It's a companion, a reminder of life's finite nature. Mornings, once hurried and chaotic, are now my sanctuary. I savor the warmth of a coffee cup in my hands as sunlight streams through the window. Afternoons are for quiet walks, where the rustling of leaves underfoot feels like a gentle conversation with nature. Evenings bring reflection, where I sit in silence and let the memories of decades wash over me. This shift has made me fiercely protective of my time. I no longer feel the need to fill every moment with activity or surround myself with people who drain more than they give. Instead, I choose carefully. A deep conversation with a close friend means more than a room full of acquaintances. A quiet afternoon spent reading feels more fulfilling than a crowded event. Time, I've learned, isn't about how much you have, but how intentionally you use it. It's about letting go of regrets over wasted moments and cherishing the ones still ahead. There's a profound peace in this understanding. I no longer feel guilty for saying no to things that don't bring joy or meaning. Each moment feels like a treasure, not because I fear running out, but because I finally understand its worth. At this stage, I've stopped chasing time. Instead, I savor it, and in doing so, I've found contentment I never knew was possible. 5. Trust at 70, a delicate balance of caution and openness. In my younger years, trust came easily. I believed in the best of people, offering my confidence freely to friends, colleagues, and even strangers. But as the years unfolded, life taught me that trust is both a gift and a risk, a delicate balance that takes only moments to shatter, yet years to rebuild. At 70, I've become far more selective about whom I let into my inner circle. This isn't bitterness, it's caution born of experience. I've been let down by those I thought would stand by me, betrayed by words unspoken or promises unkept. A close friend who turned distant when life got hard. A family member who chose indifference over connection. These moments left scars, but they also offered lessons I now carry with me. Trust isn't just about others, it's also about trusting myself. I've learned to listen to my instincts, those quiet nudges that warn when something isn't right. I've learned to set boundaries, to walk away from relationships that hurt more than heal, and to give myself permission to protect my heart. But trust hasn't disappeared entirely from my life. In recent years, I've met people who've restored my faith in humanity. A neighbor who checks in during a storm. A stranger who offers kindness without expecting anything in return. These small acts remind me that trust, while fragile, isn't impossible. At this stage, I see trust as a gate, not a wall. It keeps harm at bay while remaining open enough to let love and connection through. While I may never trust as easily as I once did, I cherish deeply the few relationships built on honesty and mutual respect. And that, I've realized, is more than enough. 6. Protecting my peace. Why avoiding people is an act of self-care. At 70, avoiding people isn't about bitterness or resentment, it's about peace. After a lifetime of giving, learning, and sometimes hurting, I've come to understand that not every relationship deserves the energy it takes to maintain. For much of my life, I was the kind of person who put others first. I thrived on being dependable, showing up, and being the steady presence people could lean on. It felt fulfilling, even natural, to give so much of myself. But over time, I began to notice the toll it took. Some relationships left me feeling drained, while others made me question my worth. Now, I no longer feel obligated to maintain connections that don't serve me. I avoid people who thrive on drama, who make everything about themselves, or who see my kindness as something endless to be taken for granted. I choose solitude over forced interactions and simplicity over social obligations. This doesn't mean I've closed myself off completely, far from it. I cherish the relationships that have stood the test of time, the ones rooted in love and understanding. These connections are fewer, but far more meaningful. When I spend time with others, it's because I truly want to, not because I feel I have to. In some ways, stepping back has allowed me to appreciate people even more. The conversations I have now are richer, the moments more memorable, because they come from choice, not duty. Avoiding people isn't about giving up on humanity. It's about creating space for what truly matters: peace, joy, and authenticity. And at this stage in life, that feels like a gift worth protecting. 7. A life well lived, embracing the beauty of now. At 70, I no longer see life as a series of endings, but as a series of new beginnings. Each stage brings its lessons, challenges, and quiet beauty. And this chapter, though different from those that came before, feels uniquely fulfilling. In my youth, life was a constant sprint. Always something to chase, someone to please, or a goal to achieve. There was a restless urgency, fueled by the belief that time was infinite and possibilities were endless. But now, I've come to understand that the most meaningful moments aren't found in the race, but in the pauses. This chapter is about simplicity. It's about savoring the warmth of a grandchild's laughter, the glow of morning sunlight streaming through the window, or the comfort of a favorite chair after a long day. These small joys, which might have gone unnoticed before, now anchor me. It's also about reflection. Looking back, I see not just the successes, but also the missteps and heartaches that shaped me. I don't cling to them with regret. Instead, I honor them as part of the journey. But this stage isn't only about looking back, it's about looking forward too. There's a quiet joy in knowing I still have time to grow, to explore, to love. It's a freedom I didn't fully embrace in earlier years. The freedom to live authentically, unapologetically, and on my own terms. Embracing this chapter means celebrating what is, rather than lamenting what isn't. It's about cherishing every moment, however small, and finding peace in the life I've built. At 70, I've learned to live deeply and intentionally, and in that, I've found a contentment I never knew was possible. 8. Releasing what weighs you down, the freedom of letting go. One of the most liberating lessons I've learned at 70 is the art of letting go of people, expectations, and even versions of myself that no longer fit. It wasn't an easy transition. For much of my life, I held on tightly, afraid that releasing something meant failure or loss. Now I see it differently. Letting go is not about giving up, it's about making space. Some relationships, once vibrant and life-giving, have faded over time. There's a bittersweetness in realizing that certain connections were meant only for a season. I used to fight to keep them alive, afraid of what their absence might mean. Now, I've learned to honor them for what they were, while understanding they no longer have a place in my current life. But it's not just about people. I've let go of the need to meet others' expectations, to say yes when I mean no, or to fit into roles that no longer align with who I've become. I've shed the guilt of putting myself first, realizing that self-care isn't selfish, it's necessary. Even old regrets and unfulfilled dreams have found their way to the door. There's a peace in accepting that some paths weren't meant to be. I no longer see those as failures, but as detours that brought me lessons I wouldn't have learned otherwise. Letting go has made space for joy, clarity, and intention. It's taught me that life isn't about how much you carry, but how lightly you can walk. And at this stage, walking lightly feels like freedom. A freedom I cherish deeply. As I reflect on what I've shared, a common thread weaves through it all. This chapter of life is about clarity, intention, and peace. Whether it's learning to value solitude, navigating shifting relationships, or cherishing time's fleeting nature, the lessons of these years have brought a profound sense of freedom. I've come to understand that life is less about how much you do or how many people surround you, and more about the quality of the moments you choose to embrace. Trust becomes more precious, connections become fewer but richer, and the simplicity of the present takes on a beauty I once overlooked. Letting go of expectations, old patterns, and relationships that no longer nurture has opened space for a life that feels lighter, more authentic. It's not about giving up, it's about creating room for what truly matters. And in this process, I've found joy, resilience, and a quiet strength I never knew was possible. If this resonates with you, know you're not alone. Whether you're on the same path or approaching it, there's beauty in living intentionally, in savoring each moment, and in choosing peace over noise. If you enjoyed this reflection, I'd love to hear your thoughts. Share your perspective in the comments. What lessons has life taught you? And if you found this meaningful, consider giving this a thumbs up, subscribing to the channel, or sharing it with someone who might appreciate it. Together, we can create a space for genuine connection and shared wisdom. Here's to living fully, embracing the journey, and finding contentment in every step forward. Thank you for being part of this conversation.